Hello, welcome back for another video on Ark Survival Ascended. In this video, I'll be showcasing 50 tips and tricks to help you on your journey through Extinction Ascended. I'd like to point out that I will not be including anything from paid DLC packs, and as always, I'll be starting off with beginner tips and tricks and moving to more advanced tips later in the video. I've added timestamps so you can quickly navigate to certain parts of the video, so let's not mess around and get straight into it. Kicking things off with introducing you to the different regions of Extinction. The Sanctuary, the Snow Dome, the Desert Dome, the Sunken Forest, and finally taking up the rest of the map is the Wasteland. In the direct center of the map is the Sanctuary, also known as the Great City. The Sanctuary will be the go-to starting area for survivors with many spawns to choose from. It will include a lack of natural predators as opposed to other regions, offering a wide variety of non-corrupted wildlife that you can make friends with to aid you on your journey. Many great base locations for early, mid, and late game. The city has its own security defenses still actively protecting the city. They can be seen attacking any creatures on site. This includes defense units, enforcers, and scouts. The scouts will alert enforcers to aggressive behavior, so you will have to check your surroundings before you decide to get aggressive to anything in and around the city. The city is also surrounded by a giant invisible force field to protect it from many dangers that Extinction possesses. Bottom right of the map we have the desert region, and unlike the Scorched Earth map where it originated from, the temperature here is much more bearable and not actually too hot. Plus you will not encounter any storms living here, so it may appeal to more players. Expect to find all those Scorched Earth DLC creatures inhabiting this region, and also more dangerous species. Also inhabiting the area is the Velonosaur, a much loved Extinction exclusive creature. The desert is also protected by a giant dome-like force field. There are many reasons that make the desert biome a great place to live. Top right of the map we have the snow region. Of course a little chilly up here in the north, so probably not a biome you'd be wanting to start out at unless you are an experienced player, but as expected the snow biome is full of rare resources and awesome creatures to tame, including all the typical creatures you'll find in any other snow biome in Ark, and also home to the snow owl and the managama. No doubt two of the best creatures that Extinction has to offer. Just like the desert region, the snow biome is also protected by a giant dome-like force field. Top left of the map we have the Sunken Forest, which is a region slightly reminiscent of Aberration, but is a much safer place to inhabit. Believe it or not, you will come across few threats if you choose to base up here. There are many reasons why the Sunken Forest is so good. Firstly, it is home to the Gacha, a very valuable creature for producing resources and loot alike. We'll get into them later in the video though. Metal is abundant here along with many other valuable resources. The only real downside is that it's an absolute mission to get to and from the surface. This is the only biome that does not have a protective force field around it. It is however underground, so it has its own natural protection from the elements. The final region which takes up the majority of the map is the Wasteland, by far the most dangerous out of the 5, heavily populated by corrupted creatures. These are non-tameable variants of vanilla creatures that look like this. They will attack anything on site and can even damage metal and tech tier structures, making it unwise to set up a base here in the wastes. I mean, it can be done, but I wouldn't recommend it. The environment is harsh and will rapidly drain a survivor's food stat. Meteor showers will also occur from time to time. It may look pretty, but it won't be pretty if these hit you or your tames in the face. It is best to take shelter in either the Sanctuary or one of the free biomes during this time. Meteors can damage structures and can insta-kill you and your tamed creatures. You'll literally be playing with fire if you decide to venture out during this time. Additional biomes to mention within the Wasteland would be the Sulfur fields in the bottom left corner of the map, composing of hot springs and pools, and is most likely the hottest location on Extinction, with temperatures reaching above 70 degrees comparable to heat waves from Scorched Earth. As expected by its name, this is the place to be if you're needing to harvest sulfur or condensed gas. These resources are plentiful here. Be careful around the water in these parts as it is highly toxic, so it's not a good idea to have yourself a nice warm bath here, because you won't be around long enough to enjoy it. The final biome within the Wasteland I wanted to mention is the Forbidden Zone. This zone is a very dangerous area, located in the center furthest north of the map, and will lead to the King Titan Terminal, which is the final boss of Extinction. You will come across the most dangerous threats in this region: corrupted Gigas, Reapers, Rexes, corrupted Wyverns, and the rare Enraged corrupted Rex. So you'll need to be prepared when exploring this region. Almost every rock in this area that looks like an orange color can be harvested for silicate and obsidian. Silicate is a direct substitute for silica pearls, which are very rare on this map. So there are a lot of riches to be had here, if you dare. City terminals are important POIs to mention and have a wide variety of different functions. You'll find these terminals commonly throughout the sanctuary and also scattered around other regions across the map. You can craft certain engrams here like the Enforcer or the Scout, and surprisingly, if you have yourself a mech blueprint where the resources can fit into the terminal, you can also craft those here too. I'm not too sure if this is intentional or not, but it can be done as of now. You can craft unstable elements and shards here and can charge up to 10 batteries at a time, but the main function that survivors use it for is for transferring items, creatures and their characters to and from other servers. Of course, server transfers are most likely closed right now for official servers, but this will be the best method to do all that once they do open up. Early game oil is a little rough to get a hold of, as the best spots are probably in the snow biome, but there's no need to worry because it's actually quite easy to obtain through killing wild enforcers, defense units and also Tek Creatures. Later on, if you can make yourself a chainsaw, this is a very efficient method of gathering oil, metal, electronics and element dust. The Dung Beetle is still and will always be a very efficient way of passively producing oil in your base. You can find the Dung Beetle spawning in the Sulfur fields and rarely scattered throughout the left side of the sanctuary. Once tamed, when accessing your Dung Beetle, be sure to enable feces collection. It will then collect any dropped feces from your tamed creatures around your base, stick them in a cage to keep them in place, then select enable wandering for it to produce its goodies. Over time, your Dung Beetle will convert poop into fertilizer and oil, and the best thing is that it will collect poop well over its weight capacity. Ideally, have yourself a Phiomia, pump a load of stimberries into him for all that extra poop, and before long you'll be playing Farming Simulator in no time at all. You've just got to remember to take it out, as they do get slot capped pretty quickly with all the fertilizer. Throughout the city you will find tables, benches and lampposts. These are extremely useful and an easy way of farming electronics, scrap metal, crystal and element dust. The metal pickaxe seemingly gathers more element dust, whereas the metal hatchet is best if you are after some electronics. By far the best method of harvesting these props is with the Doedicurus. It is an exceptional harvester when it comes to lamppost, tables and benches. Pair it with the Argentavis for the perfect farming team. The Enforcer is a mechanical creature that can be very beneficial, especially for the early game. To find a good blueprint for one, you will need to hunt down some wild Enforcers. Upon death, we'll drop blueprints. Typically, the higher the level of the Enforcer, the better the blueprint. It is well worth crafting a good one. With a very high base weight stat and the ability to harvest all tables, benches and lampposts in the sanctuary, paired with its traveling capabilities, dashing to, clinging and climbing up vertical surfaces and ceilings, will see you quickly getting to and from your base. They also deal 4 times damage to corrupted creatures, so if you do have one leveled in health and melee damage, they can be very useful in beating blue and yellow orbital supply drops. Beaver dams can be found near bodies of water in specific locations on the map, and Extinction does offer a large amount of beaver dam spawns for easy resources. Top left of the map, deep down in the sunken forest, is where you can potentially find a few dams and beaver spawns. This used to be the best spot in Survival Evolved, but for me the beavers seem very rare down here at the moment. Top right of the map, they can be found in the rivers highlighted. Being as this is the snow biome, the beavers tend to get killed off a lot, bless their little souls, but you will usually find a few dams around here. The best spawns for me have actually been the sanctuary, and of course beaver dams can be looted for a substantial amount of wood, cementing paste and small amounts of silica pearls, rare flowers and rare mushrooms. Be sure to take everything out of the dam to allow for more to respawn. Corrupted creatures do offer some unique perks. When you do have a sustainable means of killing them, there are some great benefits. Their carcasses can be harvested for corrupted nodules, which is a direct substitute of organic polymer. The most efficient harvesting tool is the chainsaw. Corrupted creatures will randomly drop rare resources like black pearls, leech blood, angler gel or organic polymer, and depending on the strength of the creature can also drop corrupted hearts, a valuable trophy you will need in summoning the titans. For example, a corrupted giga is more likely to drop a heart over a corrupted parasite. While on the subject of corrupted nodules and organic polymer, a great method to preserve the spoil timer is to tame up some Achatinas. You can find them rarely spawning throughout the sanctuary. They do also spawn in the desert cave, but they cannot be tamed. They give organic polymer a 3-time spoil timer once placed inside their inventory, and gives it a massive weight reduction so they can carry a lot of it. Of course, this is not their primary function. Just like the dung beetle, once set to wander and throw it in a cage to stop it wandering off, it will produce organic polymer and Achatina paste over time, which is a direct substitute to cementing paste, producing 1 paste per minute and capping out at 100, where you'll need to take it out for it to begin producing more. Not a great method of passively producing poly, as it spoils so quickly, but if for some reason you do have any leftover polymer after crafting, definitely chuck it inside your snails. A couple of things to mention is that they do only eat sweet veggie cakes once tamed, and be sure to spay them if you do plan on having a bunch, as they would just keep mating with one another, and they can't be having that much fun in their cages now, can they? If you're anything like me and hate all the ground clutter in ASA, there is an excessive amount of this, especially in the Sanctuary. I'm not one to really use commands, however I do highly recommend using the grass size scale command. It has made my gaming experience so much more pleasant, shall we say. It can be used to reveal beauty that you didn't even know was there, turning the majority of locations into far better looking base locations. You can also use this command to remove all that ugly looking scrapyard like clutter all over the ground, if that is the look you prefer. Where I can safely say I can see clearly now the ground clutter is gone. Cryopods, Cryofridges, and the Tek Replicator can be crafted at the King Titan terminal in the north, located at the highest peak. Coordinates are at -4.2 latitude, 49.1 longitude. Use a flyer to get here, as the ground will be infested with corrupted gigas, wyverns, and who knows what else. Ideally, stay up high in the sky to avoid aggro from any of these creatures, and once at the terminal, you can craft at your leisure. This is the location on the map if you are confused by the coordinates. While we are up here at these coordinates, I do want to point out a valuable bit of information about the King Titan arena. Silica pearls are extremely hard to find in the early game on Extinction, and although these silicate rocks are found throughout the low ground in the Forbidden Zone where it is extremely dangerous, up here in the arena no creatures tend to spawn when the arena is not in use, so it is a great place to visit with your RG and Anki combo. There's tons of silicate rocks up here, and also the odd few obsidian and metal rocks. You can farm thousands of silicate from the arena alone without having to worry about any dangerous threats. Make sure no one is planning on summoning the King Titan, of course. These red beacons can be found circling the outskirts of the map, and these are not just for decoration, they basically act as the world barrier, and usually when playing other maps you cannot get past it. However, unlike other maps, you can actually traverse beyond this one if you aren't careful enough, but do try not to go beyond the barriers because you will insta-die, and you may be saying goodbye to retrieving your gear. Green gem deposits can be found scattered throughout the Sanctuary. You'll be wanting to look for these types of crystals. These crystals can be found in a few locations in the snow biome. Another great area to harvest these crystals is from the desert biome. There are plenty scattered throughout this region also. Blue gems are, however, much easier to get a hold of. They are found in abundance throughout the entirety of the wasteland. You'll be looking for these types of trees. Chop these trees up with a chainsaw for best results, and you will harvest blue crystallized sap, which is a direct substitute to blue gems. Moving on to red gems, and it's the same tomato. However, you will be wanting to look for these types of trees and other red trees in the Forbidden Zone. These trees tend to only be found around these highlighted areas on the map, and of course are everywhere in the Forbidden Zone. However, there's a few good spots you can find a bunch of these trees which are in much friendlier locations. Once again, the chainsaw is king, and both variants of tree can be harvested for corrupted wood, which is also a direct substitute of fungal wood. The best chitin farm on the entire map is the Desert Cave. Coordinates to the entrance are 92.6 latitude, 74.2 longitude. By far the best method is using the Megatherium, due to it dealing massive damage to insects, which in turn makes it an exceptional harvester of chitin. There are a lot of Mantis and Alpha Plura spawns throughout the cave, so you will easily get slot capped in no time at all. While here in the Desert Cave, I wanted to share a very valuable tip. A lot of people believe that the Mantis cannot be tamed in Extinction due to it only spawning in the cave where you cannot tame anything. However, there is this one spot I found where you can actually tame the Mantis. If you follow the main path straight through, it will lead you to this point in the cave. You're looking for this cliff located above a pool of water below. There's also a loot crate that spawns on the left. Basically, if a Mantis naturally spawns here anywhere within the circled area, it means it can be tamed. Of course, this is not a convenient method in finding a high level, but it's still a tameable Mantis at the end of the day. You will have to kill everything off in the area and keep returning to this spot to see if another has spawned, and rinse and repeat until you get the level that you desire. The Snow Owl is great for many reasons. I'm going to focus briefly on its healing ability. Not only can it heal your own creatures at the cost of its own stamina, but it can also heal wild creatures too. This can be an absolute lifesaver when taming, especially creatures that are on the brink of death. Snow Owl, no problem. Heal them up and you can begin the taming process. It is most likely the quickest method of healing players too. It will fully drain a player's food but will heal them to full in a matter of just a few seconds. The heal is also useful in aiding in taming specific creatures such as the gas bags. When attempting to knock out the gas bags, it will inflate itself, giving it massive damage reduction. However, the snow owl could freeze it, which will fully deflate it, allowing for a much easier knockout task. Another great thing to know about the healing ability is that whenever you use it, because the snow owl loses food and is always using and regaining stamina quickly, you could forcefully make it poop, which of course means throw up its pellets. You can rinse and repeat this until you have the amount of pellets that you need. These pellets are useful for many reasons. You can use them as a form of fertilizer for your crops, giving 50,000 units, which is only 4,000 less than actual fertilizer. But the main use of these pellets is feeding them to the Gacha, which gives it a loot buff whenever it consumes a snow owl pellet, which will lead us on nicely to the Gacha and what makes them so good. The Gacha is by far one of the most useful creatures on Extinction, able to produce valuable resources and high quality loot from the comfort of your own base. You will find the Gacha spawning deep down in the sunken forest, tamed via a unique taming method where it picks up items off the ground that you throw down in front of it. You can tame them with almost anything and everything that you have at hand, with greenhouse structures seemingly giving the best taming effectiveness, followed by metal structures, and then stone. I recommend using ceilings because they are cheaper than foundations. The larger the quantity of item dropped, the faster it is tamed, and of course the higher the quality of item dropped, the better the taming effectiveness. If you don't have their preferred taming food at hand, you can even farm up a bunch of stone or wood and whatever is available to you at the time and just use that to tame them. Of course you will lose a lot of levels and taming effectiveness using basic resources, but I'm just saying it can be done if you don't really care about their levels. A Gacha is a Gacha at the end of the day, and if it ends up producing a resource that you are desperate for, then that makes any level extremely valuable. Once tamed, you will have to keep them well fed, as they chow down on anything and everything like there's no tomorrow, and they will need to be rammed full of food to be able to produce their Gacha crystals. Ideally, you can ram them full of stone because it is cheap and cheerful, which will allow them to produce a steady flow of Gacha crystals, and this is what I'll typically do when using them for primarily producing resources. Have yourself a Pegomastax nearby and enable Gacha crystal collection, and it will pick up crystals that your Gachas drop. All wild Gachas will produce different resources once tamed. When accessing their radial menu, having 6 options to choose from: 3 common resources, 2 uncommon, and 1 rare. And if you're lucky enough, you can even find one that can produce black pearls or the very rare element dust. So it's worth taming any and every level when searching for a Gacha specifically for the purpose of producing resources. For the Gacha to be most effective, you will want to only have 1 male and 1 female close together, as if there are more nearby they will become sad, causing them to not drop as many crystals and not pick up items off the ground. And we don't want that. We want our Gachas to be having an absolute blast. You can, however, own multiple pairs if they are far enough away from other pairs, roughly around 10 or so foundations apart. The quality of loot can be improved by types of food they eat. You can chuck a load of plant species wide traps inside them, or have yourself a snow owl or 2 parked in front of them, so they can pick up their owl pellets whenever dropped. Another alternative to feeding them plant species wide traps would be to feed them standard seeds, which are much easier to get a hold of as berries are plentiful. Farm a load of berries on your preferred berry gatherer, chuck them all inside an iguanodon, where you can access its radial menu and select the seed fruit in inventory option, which will convert a bunch of berries into seeds, and your Gachas love to eat these too. Its crafting skill stat seems to work similar to ASE. If you want more resources, level it up to around 160%, and if you want it to produce high quality loot and far less resources, then you can level it more up to 260%. As mentioned earlier, the Gacha will pick up any item off the ground, which means you can pair a Gacha or 2 with your Achatinas. Snails will naturally poop out Achatina paste, and your Gacha will pick it up off the ground. This can be another great method of gathering cement in paste. As long as your Gacha has a good supply of food inside its inventory, it will not eat the paste. So you will have the income from your Achatinas producing it on wander inside their inventory, and also your Gachas picking it up over time. You will have so much cement in paste you won't know what to do with it. Moving on to raising Gacha babies. They can be an absolute nightmare to breed because they just eat, and eat. Well, the trick is, don't feed them at all. Baby Gachas will automatically feed themselves, as silly as that sounds. You can see there's nothing in this guy's inventory, yet his food and health are still going up. The only downside is that you have to be within render distance for this to work, and this will work to get you through the annoying baby feeding stage. If you want to do it this way, you have to make sure they don't eat or pick up anything off the ground, otherwise they will die. So make sure they are nowhere near any of your creatures to risk them picking anything up. You can also cryopod them if you need to leave your base and throw them back out again and rinse and repeat all the way through until they reach adulthood if you wanted to. The other method is what I used to do, as I don't want to be hanging around my base all the time. Farm up a load of stone with your Doedicurus or meat with a carnivore and throw it all down in front of your baby, and it will pick up everything off the ground, encumbering itself. I usually have them nowhere near any feeding troughs using both this method and the non-feeding method, so I know exactly what they are eating. Basically, you either go all out and feed them everything and anything, or you just don't feed them at all. Hopefully that all makes sense. You can also alternate between the two. If they ever did eat anything by accident, cryopodding them and throwing them back out again will always allow the no feed method to resume. As you can see, I just threw him out and he's back to gaining food and health without actually eating anything. The final tip I wanted to give in relation to gachas is focused on a gacha that can produce organic polymer. Here is a list of all the potential resources a gacha can produce, and organic polymer is the only resource that has a spoil timer. Have yourself a vault nearby to hold all the crystals. If you keep it all in the form of gacha crystals, it will have an unlimited spoil timer. So whenever you need some polymer, get yourself in your vault and boosh, you're in business. It is always a good idea to trap creatures that you are taming, especially the extinction exclusive creatures, and there's no better man to show you the ways of the Force. I highly recommend checking out Captain Fatdog's channel. He is a building genius that builds the best traps on the internet, and he has trap guides for the Manigama, the gas bags, the snow owl, and the Velonosaur, and has many cool trap designs for other creatures in the game. I'll leave a link to his channel in the description of the video and in a pinned comment. Tek Creatures made their return with the Extinction map. We now have the option to tame the Tek Raptor, Parasaur, Stego, Rex, Quetzal, and also the extremely rare Tek Giga. These Tek Creatures have a small chance of spawning instead of their vanilla counterparts, and can spawn up to level 180 in the wild. They can be very beneficial to tame for stronger stats. My favourite thing about Tek Creatures is breeding them, not for stronger stats, but to send them straight to the slaughterhouse. Tame up a male and a bunch of females, doesn't even matter what level they are. Get them all to breed, pop out a load of babies, and fully raise them. The Parasaur and Raptor have a very quick mature time and are very easy to raise. Once the babies are fully grown, it's time to dish out some shotgun surgery and send them to the grave. Grab yourself a chainsaw and you'll become rich with element dust, metal, electronics, and oil. It feels so bad but so good at the same time. There are two awesome locations to find rare flowers. The snow biome is great. You'll be needing to look for these types of bushes. They are everywhere throughout the snow biome, so you won't have any trouble finding them. The Ferrazino reigns supreme here, able to harvest a lot of rare flowers. The second spot is in the sanctuary, where you'll be needing to look for these types of bushes, and you'll find these in the small swamp area. This is where I am on the map, and there's the coordinates on screen. The Ferrazino is once again the best creature for harvesting the rare flower. Rare mushrooms, however, do live up to their name. Of course, beaver dams offer a few. Blue and yellow orbital supply drops also commonly drop a few, but it's nothing substantial. The best methods are from harvesting these purple flowers found under the red obelisk around the edges of the lakes here, which of course is in the desert biome. Ferrazino once again is the best creature for harvesting these. You won't get many, but the bushes do respawn pretty quickly. You'll also be able to gather great amounts of silk, plant species Y seeds, and also small amounts of rare flowers. And of course, as always, giving a crystal node a good slap can yield some small amounts of rare mushrooms. Sap is a valuable resource for many crafting recipes. You will need to look for these types of trees in the desert biome. I discovered this really good spot for these trees. This is my location on the map, and here are the coordinates. There's a bucket load of these trees here following down the pathway that leads you to the lakes below, and you should be able to harvest a lot from this area. The chainsaw is best, but you can use a metal hatchet for the second best option of harvesting tool. But for the best method, you'll be wanting to tame a gacha that can produce sap. If you are looking for its cousin Cactus Sap, it comes in the form of cactus trees like these, which can be found very commonly around the edges of the desert biome. Harvest trees with either a metal hatchet or a chainsaw for best results. Giant bee honey is a nightmare to get a hold of on Extinction, with queen bees being very difficult to find. They can be found roaming out in the open or in the form of beehives. You'll be wanting to search the sanctuary. They're usually found around the buildings, typically high up. If you do find one that is high up, you can chow down a load of rare flowers to bait it down to the ground, as it has an effect that will aggro almost every creature in the game regardless of temperament. So do keep that in mind when you use them. The second location you can find them is the sunken forest, either roaming or as a beehive attached to the redwood trees. They seem to be very rare and of course can be very difficult to see. The best way to hunt one down is by using the snow owl's infrared vision. It will light up beehives and giant bees like a Christmas tree, making them much easier to spot. Dreadnoughtus taming can be a little daunting at first, especially if you're aiming to gain the maximum taming efficiency. This is where you will need to find the alpha difficulty element vein, which will of course spawn deadlier creatures. Instead of passively feeding it element to bait it to the vein, you can save on your element if you ride a large creature like the Carcharodontosaurus, as the Dreadnoughtus will aggro to it. Once near the vein, you can whistle your Carcha away from it, feed it some element from your final hotbar slot, and lead it close to the vein, but not close enough so you initiate the horde defense, and the Dreadnoughtus will do its thing. Once it begins chewing on the element vein, you want to quickly box it in with some stone behemoth gates to protect it. I was a little slow in doing so, and sadly lost a teeny little bit of taming effectiveness. If playing PvP, you'll definitely want to bring a lot of spares, or even metal behemoth gates if you can afford it. Taming a high level with max taming effectiveness will be well worth it. I'm playing PvE and it seems the creatures do not damage the structures, making taming relatively easy. I like to ride a high level Carcha and just chomp everything. There are corrupted wyverns that spawn, but of course they rarely attack you as they are trying to get to the Dreadnoughtus instead. Every time it eats, it gains a digestion shield, where it is immune to any form of damage while the shield is up, but as soon as it takes too much damage and loses the shield, its taming effectiveness will go down. But if you place down your gates quick enough and can keep on top of it, you shouldn't run into too many issues. If you are looking to speedrun the caves, I would highly recommend using a Managama through the desert cave. It's super easy to get around with no immediate danger when quickly darting through. However, for the forest cave and the ice cave, the Giga and Carcha have full access to both caves. These two caves are very dangerous with high level tanky creatures and annoying dismount creatures like the Polovia and the Microraptor, so they are the best mounts to plow your way through both. Moving on to orbital supply drops, there are 4 types of OSD, each one varying in difficulty, health, and potential rewards. Blue, which is easy, yellow, which is medium, red, which is hard, and purple, which is legendary. Once in range, you will automatically trigger the Horde wave defense, where you need to defend the drop from waves of corrupted creatures. For blue, yellow, and red, you will need to defeat 6 waves to get the loot inside, whereas for purple, you will need to defeat 8 waves before you can open the drop. With the purple, you can also choose to keep going. The more waves you can beat, the more loot you will receive. Be sure not to stray too far from the drop, as it will cancel the horde defense. So let's quickly go over the creatures and some strategies that are great for each drop. A good stack of metal spike walls and metal gates is a good idea to have on your hotbar. I placed down a circle of metal gates around the drop, and you can use spike walls to block paths or choke points to spread out the corrupted a little bit. They do chew through these pretty quickly in PvP, especially with the harder difficulties, so I'm not sure how viable they will be here. However, in PvE, the corrupted creatures don't seem to damage structures, or at least they don't for me, which definitely does make defending them much easier. Also, be sure to pick up any structures before opening the drop, because if you don't, then poof, there's your structures vanishing into thin air, which you could most definitely use for an OSD later down the line. I highly recommend utilizing Dino Leashes, especially for the legendary orbital supply drops. Once you place down a Dino Leash, stick your creature or creatures inside and set to aggressive. They will then stay within the radius and will not wander off. It has 4 range settings to choose from. I usually have them set to a range close to the drop, but not close enough that they can hit it. Of course, in PvE, this will not matter as you cannot damage the drop. So you can use gates to block off the drop, or just stick a Dino Leash nearby or inside the gates. Cluster your creatures up around the drop and watch the devastation commence. Another piece of equipment that you can use for hard and legendary drops is a full set of hazard gear. This will give you some protection against the corrupted wyvern's fire breath. The armor does lose durability, but it will stop the fire breath tick damage over time until it breaks, of course. And you can find high quality hazard from the red orbital supply drops. The rider being hit with this attack while mounted was actually recently patched, so that's really good news, but I did want to still throw the info in here anyway, as it might come in handy in certain situations. It does have to be a full set. Once one piece does break, you will take the full brunt of the fire burn. So not quite as important as it was just a few weeks ago, but I do still always go into battle wearing my washing up gloves just to be safe. Depending on what creatures you are using, you may want to turn off resource gathering so that your creatures don't get over encumbered. If using creatures like the Carcha, I always make sure it has plenty of stacks of meat inside its inventory before doing so, as its food stat will rapidly deplete when at 100 stacks of blood rage. Therefore, when fully depleted, will not heal quickly, which is something we definitely don't want. Adding to this, corrupted hearts are required in summoning every titan, so you will need a lot. Hearts will be randomly dropped by killing larger and more dangerous corrupted creatures, including the corrupted Rex, Spino, Wyvern, Parasur, and the Giga. The best way of gathering these is simply from running orbital supply drops, most notably the red and purple. Ride in your Carcha following tip 39. Have resource harvesting turned off, and make sure you enable victim item collection. The red OSDs spawn most of the creatures mentioned, so if you do have a strong enough imprinted Carcha, and if the combo combined weight of the player and your Karka is less than 50% of the total weight, the corrupted hearts will be snatched right up straight into the Karka's inventory. You will also need some of these tributes when summoning the Titans, so it's a great method of farming both. Plus, if your creature doesn't reach that weight capacity limit, you'll probably find that you'll grab a cheeky amount of black pearls also. Can't complain about that. I suppose I better tell you which creatures are good for which drop. This is taken from my experience when playing as a solo. Beginning with the blue drop, a high level enforcer pumped in health and melee can easily solo the blue drops. For yellow drops, you will most likely need some stronger creatures. Having a strong imprinted mana garment is a good option to ride around on, as the ice breath does not damage the shield or the OSD when playing PvP. You can bring along some strong imprinted Rexes or similar creatures with decent saddles to take care of everything else, or once you have a strong Karka or Giga, which will be the go-to for clearing any OSD quickly. Red drops can be soloed with a strong imprinted Karka with a good saddle in PvE. In PvP, you'll probably need to bring more, and utilize Dino Leashes for any unridden creatures. At wave 4 and 5, you'll begin to face some enraged corrupted trikes, which buffs all other corrupted creatures, so it is important to take them out as quickly as possible. Red and purple drops are also where you'll be able to find a good mech blueprint, and for purple drops, well, the Karka is king once again. It can be a good idea to once again use Dino Leashes with a good amount of Karkas. How many you'll need all depends on how strong they are. I brought 6 fully imprinted ones without any mutations for this party, as I planned on running a lot of waves, but of course if you do have heavily mutated ones, then you may not need as many as this. A few high level mate boosted Dreadnoughtus are very useful to bring along. They deal a lot of damage and dish out massive knockback to anything including corrupted wyverns. Depending on how many waves you plan on running, you may want to give your Dreadnoughtuses some sweet veggie cakes too. Equip all with the best saddles you can find. In PvE, I grouped them up around the drop and throw down a Dino Leash. You can build around the drop for extra protection, and if possible, switching Karkas after each completed wave is a good idea to ensure that all your Karkas have 100 stacks of Blood Rage. Placing metal structures isn't really viable with purple OSDs. When playing PvP, they will almost obliterate anything in just a few hits. You will face the formidable enraged corrupted Rex after waves 3, which just like the enraged Trike will buff all corrupted creatures. These are extremely tanky and deal a lot of damage. It's very important to take them out as quickly as possible. Also, I'd like to point out that if you are looking for a great way to level up your battle mounts and also chibi pets, there is probably no better way than the red and purple OSDs. Element Veins are the second horde defense that is by far the best way to farm element on Extinction. They come in 3 different difficulties: Gamma, Beta and Alpha. Just like OSDs varying in health and difficulty, instead of defending an OSD, you are defending an Element Vein for 6 waves from waves of corrupted creatures. The more nodes of element that you can keep intact, the larger the reward. When spotting an Element Vein, you can use your spyglass to see the details. The easy Element Vein will have 10,000 health and is comparable in difficulty to a blue OSD. The medium vein has 25,000 health and is comparable to a yellow OSD. And finally, the hard vein has 50,000 health, comparable to a red OSD. Good creatures to use for earlier veins would be the Enforcer due to its speed, agility and 4 times damage to corrupted. The Mana Garment is also a great choice, fast, agile and its breath attack will not damage the vein. Another creature that is great for defense is a bred Velonosaur pumped in melee and stamina. They are great for dealing a lot of damage very quickly. Plus they can also ground flyers with the ranged attack and it won't deal any damage to the vein. When ridden, its ranged attack does scale with melee damage, so you can imagine how much better a mutated one could be. You will need to bring a good amount of food for it, as it eats excessive amounts when using the turret mode. Bringing more along with you set to turret mode can also be very useful. I just wish the game developers would fix their hit reg already, because it is a bit hit or miss. While riding your Enforcer, Mana, Velonosaur, etc, it's always a good idea to bring spares in cryos, so you can switch out to them if you ever need to. For the hard difficulty, you will need some tanky creatures positioned outside the vein. Using Dino Leashes is always beneficial to keep them guarding choke points. Karkas, Gigas, Rexes and anything like that are great choices. You need them for defense with the hard veins, but you don't want them damaging the vein either. Unless of course you are on a server where the element vein doesn't take any damage. Then you can just ride a Karka and obliterate everything in your path. It's always a good idea to have yourself a pocket Mantis equipped with some ascendant pickaxes. By far the best way to harvest the vein. Be sure to harvest the smaller nodes before you harvest the main node to ensure you are harvesting every inch of that glorious element. Killing the Titans can be done in many ways. In my most recent video, I took on the Ice Titan and the Forest Titan with just 1 or 2 imprinted Deinosuchus. With the right tactics, you can use the Gigabyte and the Fractured debuff to easily kill both. It works like a bleed attack. The Ice Titan was actually very easy due to there being water within the arena boundaries. You can also use some high-level mate-boosted Dreadnoughtus to kill all the Titans. The Desert Titan is the weakest by far. You can fly up above it and throw out a Dreadnoughtus and start swinging that neck and it will not knock you off, even when it does its barrel roll. If the Dreadnoughtus could do a kickflip on a skateboard, this is probably what it would look like. The Titan will barely be able to hit your Dreadnoughtus. You will get dismounted, but you can easily remount and resume swinging until it is dead. Now let's move on to the best ways to tame the Titans. The mech will be your new best friend. It does have a lot more perks, but I will focus on the useful modules it has that can aid in helping you tame these beasts. Beginning with the MSCM, which is a powerful mech-mounted siege weapon that fires cannon shells as ammo. It does possess a slow rate of fire, but it will deal massive damage, with a good amount of precision shots. And timing, this is the best module for taming the Ice Titan when shooting at its corrupted spots. This is the best Titan to tame if you need a big chunky tank for the King Titan fight, or if you want to use it for a purple OSD. The Desert Titan is pretty bad, and it is not really worth taming in PvE. The Forest Titan can be tamed pretty safely with the mech by shooting its corruption spots with its tech pistol. It will take a while, but it does work well. I definitely bring a good amount of element for this. I think I used around 200 to 300 or so, but I did bring a long 500 element just to be safe. And I always say it's better to be safe than sorry. And here we are, the King Titan fight. For Gamma and Beta, being as the Dreadnoughtus is dubbed the Titan Killer, it would be rude not to bring an army of these magnificent beasts. I think I had around 12 high-level bred ones here, all with 50 to 60 armor saddles with 20 sweet veggie cakes inside each. Having the Forest Titan or the Ice Titan to tank and dish out damage is always a good choice. There are many different strategies you can use, to be honest, but I value riding a Uteranus to buff the Dreadnoughtuses. More important info I'd like to make note of is during the fight, meteor showers will occur. If you do get hit, it will destroy your character's armor very quickly, even when mounted, and you will take a good amount of burn damage too, so it can be deadly. Having hazard gear is always a good idea to at least avoid the burn damage over time. Be sure to keep his attention in the center of the arena, as he can heal if straying too far away. The battle advances in back and forth phases between attacking the Titan and defending an element vein. In this instance, I didn't even bother defending the vein and just kept attacking the King Titan, even though he takes reduced damage while the element vein is active, and still prevailed with this beastly army. When taking on the Alpha King Titan, the most valuable asset that you can have for this fight is in the form of a giant robot. You will receive the Mommy module after defeating the Beta King Titan, which you can attach to a mech with 3 other mechs nearby to transform it into the Mega Mech, which is only available when fighting the Alpha King Titan. It is able to dish out a massive amount of damage with its sword. What better way to close out the video than to send you to my other videos? If you're looking for a good base location, I have a top 20 PvE base location video up on the channel. If you're looking for the best creatures to tame and want to know everything about them, then I have a top 10 creatures to tame for Extinction. And if you're looking for a loot table guide of where to find specific loot and blueprints, well, I have you covered on that one too. All links to the videos will be in the description of the video and in a pinned comment. This video did really take me 9 days to edit, so apologies for that. So if you did enjoy the video or found it helpful in any way, then don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more. And I'll catch you all in the next one. Take care. Goodbye.